A reserved black girl enters Brooklyn High School. She's determined to complete her final year while flying under the radar. However, before she can survive even her first week, a white classmate marks her as an ideal victim. The mockery begins initially. Then come the hushed conversations, followed by public embarrassment. When the tormentor grins, certain it's time for a grand finale, spectators assemble, anticipating the expected outcome. But there's something they're unaware of regarding this black girl. She isn't merely the newcomer. She's a warrior trained for combat, and she's about to show them all precisely what that entails. The yellow school transport pulled alongside the sidewalk before Brooklyn High. Its brakes wheezed as the entrance squeaked apart. Pupils poured out, giggling and pushing, traveling in clusters that had been formed long ago. Nobody noticed the girl, descending last. Her school bag hung from one shoulder. Her face gave nothing away. Imani Brooks shifted her bag and drew a measured breath. She studied the towering brick structure before her. It wasn't vastly different from her previous school in Chicago. Identical packed corridors, identical loud pupils, identical unwritten codes of endurance. Keep your gaze down, avoid drawing notice, and steer clear problems. That had been her strategy at every previous institution. She wasn't present to create friendships. She was present to complete her final year, earn her certificate, and progress forward. As she moved through the doorway, she sensed the familiar stares. Murmurs trailed her. She understood how this functioned. A fresh face always attracted interest. But the focus was different when you were a black girl in a predominantly white institution. They weren't simply observing her. They were evaluating her. Would she be boisterous? Would she be confrontational? Would she be one of those girls? Imani disregarded them. She maintained her forward gaze as she searched for her storage unit. That's when she spotted them. Jessica Carter. The identity had already been mentioned around her on the transport. The tall blonde girl moved with assurance, encircled by her companions. She wasn't simply well-liked. She was in command. The type of girl who determined who had value and who didn't. Beside her stood Monica and Ava, her devoted supporters. But what truly captured Imani's focus were the two boys accompanying them. Ryan Carter, Jessica's elder brother, a senior, and the institution's star football athlete. He wore a smirk that conveyed he knew he was beyond reach. Next to him was Trey Morales, a thin, keen-eyed boy with a big mouth, the sort of guy who adored hearing his own voice. Imani recognized their category. She had no plans of becoming entangled with any of them, so she returned to her storage unit, rotating the dial on her combination lock. But even while keeping her head lowered, she could sense it. Jessica's gaze upon her, observing, assessing. The initial class proceeded without incident, but the murmurs persisted. Someone bumped her in the corridor. She's from Chicago. Thinks she's one of those tough girls. Imani showed no response. Let them believe whatever they desired. During lunch, she sat by herself at a vacant table in the cafeteria's corner. She ate quietly, ignoring the conversation surrounding her. Then the laughter shifted. It became louder, more pointed, aimed at her. Well, look at this. Jessica's voice carried clearly, smooth and taunting. Imani didn't raise her eyes. She took a drink of her juice. Oh, is the new girl timid? Monica sneered. I think she's just arrogant, Ava contributed, pretending like she's too superior to speak with people. The cafeteria grew quiet, observing. Imani continued eating, offering them nothing. Then Trey voiced his opinion. Maybe she doesn't understand English, he jested. Laughter expanded. Ryan leaned against her table, looming above her. Or maybe she's just dim. More laughter. Jessica smirked, awaiting a response. She required one. If the new girl ignored her, that indicated she wasn't frightened. And Jessica couldn't allow that. She reached forward and knocked Imani's juice cup, spilling it across her meal. The cafeteria became silent. Imani breathed out slowly. She placed her fork down, cleaned her hands, and rose calmly. Without glancing at Jessica or her companions, she lifted her tray, walked to the waste bin, and discarded it. Then she departed. Behind her, laughter burst forth again, but it sounded strained, uncomfortable. Jessica sensed it as well. because when Imani finally regarded her before departing, there was something in her expression, not fury, not fear, just a cold, quiet patience. And for the first time in ages, Jessica Carter experienced something she wasn't accustomed to: doubt. The tension from the cafeteria circulated throughout the school. By the following class, everyone was discussing it. It should have been a victory for Jessica. Another new student humiliated. But something about Imani's response didn't feel right. She hadn't appeared embarrassed. She hadn't even appeared angry. It was as if she had anticipated it. Jessica despised that sensation, the absence of control. In class, she drummed her fingernails on her desk, barely paying attention to the instructor. Monica leaned closer. That was strange, right? Jessica forced a smile. She's pretending, attempting to appear tough. But Monica still appeared uncertain, and Jessica knew others felt similarly. Across the room, Ryan stretched and grinned. "You appear stressed, sis." Jessica glared. "Shut up." Ryan chuckled. "Relax. If she wants to act tough, we'll just press harder. She'll crack." Trey smirked. "Yeah, maybe we need to increase the pressure." Jessica allowed their words to settle. Maybe they were correct. Maybe Imani was just performing. But if she believed she could walk around like she was invincible, she had another thing coming. By the following day, the pressure began to increase. Imani could sense it before she even reached school. People regarded her differently now. The atmosphere had changed. She wasn't just a new student anymore. Now she was a challenge. She didn't respond. She didn't need to walk into her storage unit that morning. She moved with the same calm, untroubled attitude as always. But the whispers followed her. She really just walked away. She didn't even appear mad. What if she's actually dangerous? The rumors spread quickly. Soon, Jessica and her group decided to test her again. It began small. In gym class, Monica and Ava accidentally collided with her. An elbow here, a push there. Imani didn't respond. That only made them more daring. During basketball, Ryan took the ball from her every time she obtained it, shoving her forcefully enough to make her stumble. Trey laughed. "Damn, new girl. Do you even understand how to play?" Imani ignored them. Jessica observed, arms folded, waiting for Imani to break. But nothing. Imani absorbed every shove, every insult, every unfair move, and didn't react. If anything, she appeared bored. It wasn't submission. It was control. Jessica ground her teeth. That was worse. By lunchtime, Jessica was finished playing games. Imani had barely lifted her tray when she felt it, a hard push from behind. She stumbled forward. Her tray tilted. Food scattered across the floor. The cafeteria went silent. Then the laughter began. Jessica smirked as she stepped forward, standing over Imani like she'd already won. "Oh no," she mocked. "Did the poor little new girl drop her lunch? That's so unfortunate." Ava and Monica laughed. Ryan leaned against the table smirking. Trey recorded on his phone. Other students pulled out their cameras. This was it. This was the moment Imani was supposed to break. Jessica leaned in. "What's wrong? Gonna cry? Maybe you should run home to mommy." More laughter. More cameras. But Imani didn't move. She stood completely still for a moment, fists clenched. Then slowly she looked up at Jessica, and she smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible. But Jessica saw it. For the first time, Jessica felt something cold crawl up her spine. The cafeteria was still laughing, but Jessica suddenly wasn't sure why. It didn't feel like winning anymore. Imani bent down, calmly picked up her tray, and without breaking eye contact, walked away. Laughter exploded again, but it wasn't the same. Jessica could hear the confusion beneath it, the whispers. That wasn't fear in Imani's eyes. It wasn't anger. It was something else entirely. And for the first time in her life, Jessica Carter felt doubt. That evening, Imani sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched plate of food. Her father, Darius Brooks, stood at the counter, pouring himself coffee. His sharp eyes glanced toward her occasionally. He didn't need to ask if something was wrong. Darius had seen that look before. The quiet, controlled stillness of someone holding back. He set his coffee cup down and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "All right," he said, voice steady. "Tell me." Imani exhaled slowly, replaying the cafeteria scene in her head. The spilled food, the laughter, Jessica's smug face. "I don't want to fight," she finally said. Darius studied her. "And yet you're thinking about it." Imani's hands curled into fists. "I don't want to fight," she repeated, her voice tighter this time. "But I don't want to be that girl either. The one who just takes it. The one they think they can push around. I walked away today, and it made things worse." Darius took a slow sip of coffee, choosing his words carefully. "You walked away because you didn't want to hurt them." Imani looked up sharply. He met her gaze, unblinking. "I trained you to defend yourself, not to be a weapon. But I also trained you to know when people like that won't stop until you give them a reason to." She swallowed. She knew that truth too well. She had grown up in a fighting gym surrounded by fighters. Her father had been a professional before becoming a trainer. She'd been sparring with grown men since she was 8. Footwork, instincts, reading an opponent, all drilled into her since childhood. But that power had consequences. The last time she'd really fought back, a boy ended up in the hospital. It ruined her life. New school, new city. A promise to herself to never let that side out again. She took a slow breath. "If I fight back, it won't end there. It never does." Darius nodded. "True, but walking away doesn't always end it either. If they think you're weak, they'll keep pushing until they break you." Imani met his eyes. "So what do I do?" Darius pulled out a chair and sat across from her, leaning forward. "You don't start fights, Imani, but you finish them." His voice was calm but firm. "You don't need to prove anything to them. But if they leave you no choice, you make sure they never try it again." She exhaled, the tension in her chest loosening slightly. Darius sat back. "I know you. I know your control. You're not some wild kid throwing fists out of anger. You make decisions. You calculate." A pause. Then he added, "So if you have to fight, don't do it to teach them a lesson." His gaze locked onto hers. "Do it to end the fight before it even begins." Imani let his words sink in. She wasn't looking for a fight, but she knew the fight was coming for her. And when it did, she'd be ready. Jessica Carter couldn't sleep that night. She kept replaying the cafeteria scene, no matter how she twisted it. She couldn't ignore one thing. Imani had smiled. Not flinched, not cowered, just smiled. It wasn't right. It wasn't normal. And it wasn't over. People had laughed, sure. But the whispers afterward had changed. Some even sounded impressed. Jessica's stomach twisted. No way she was letting some nobody mess with the order of things. By morning, the plan was set. Ryan, Trey, Monica, Ava, all on board. This wasn't just about proving a point anymore. It was about making sure Imani knew her place. Word spread fast. By lunch, everyone knew. After school, behind the gym. No teachers, no cameras, just a lesson in humility. Imani knew too. She felt the shift the moment she walked into school. The stares, the curiosity, the pity. She wasn't stupid. She'd been through this before. Different faces, same patterns. She'd spent years avoiding fights, staying quiet, keeping her head down. But people like Jessica never understood silence. They thought it meant weakness. And Imani was done pretending. When the final bell rang, she didn't hesitate. She walked to the back of the school, stepping onto the cracked pavement behind the gym. They were already waiting. Jessica stood in the center, arms crossed, smirking. Monica and Ava flanked her. Ryan and Trey hovered close, their presence a silent threat. Behind them, a crowd had gathered, at least 20 students. Some whispering, some filming. Imani stopped a few feet from Jessica. Jessica tilted her head. "Wow, you actually showed up. I thought you'd keep running like yesterday." Imani didn't blink. "I wasn't running." Jessica scoffed. "Please, you didn't even stand up for yourself." Imani exhaled, tilting her head like she was bored. "You think throwing food is a fight?" Jessica's smile twitched. "Oh, don't worry," she said sweetly. "I'll make it a real one." She stepped closer. Imani spoke, her voice calm but final. "I'm here to warn you." Jessica blinked. "Warn me?" Ryan and Trey exchanged glances. Monica and Ava looked confused. Imani's tone was steady. "You don't want to do this." Jessica laughed, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Oh, that's adorable. The new girl's threatening me." "Not a threat," Imani said. "A warning." Jessica hated how her own heartbeat sped up, hated that Imani wasn't scared, hated that she suddenly felt like the one making a mistake. Ryan stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "You done talking? Or are we starting this?" Jessica smirked, seizing the out. "You heard her, Ryan. She says we don't want to do this. So show her how wrong she is." Ryan rolled his shoulders, stepping up to Imani. He towered over her, 6 inches taller, built like a wall. He grinned like this was a joke. "Don't worry," he mocked. "I'll go easy on," he swung. It happened in a blink. Imani wasn't there anymore. She stepped inside his reach, grabbed his wrist and twisted, using his own momentum against him. Ryan's world flipped. 1 second, he was throwing a punch. The next, his back slammed into the pavement, so hard the air rushed from his lungs. The crowd gasped. Jessica's stomach dropped. Ryan lay on the ground, coughing, eyes wide with shock. Because that wasn't supposed to happen. That wasn't possible. Imani stepped back. Her face was unreadable. "I warned you." Trey hesitated. His confidence wavered. His body tensed. But he had a reputation to keep. He couldn't back down, not in front of everyone. "Bitch got lucky," he spat. He charged forward. Imani barely moved. She sidestepped at the last second. In one smooth motion, she grabbed Trey's wrist mid-strike, spun behind him, and twisted his arm into a lock. It was so fast he let out a choke yell. She let him go. Trey stumbled forward, clutching his arm. He stared at her like she was something unreal. The crowd fell silent. Jessica felt her pulse pounding in her skull. She had lost control. Imani stood there, hands relaxed at her sides, completely calm. When she finally looked at Jessica again, her voice was quiet, almost disappointed. "Do you still think I was running?" Jessica didn't answer. She couldn't. For the first time in her life, she knew what it felt like to be the prey. For the first time, Jessica Carter had nothing to say. The silence was heavy. The same crowd that come to see Imani humiliated now stood frozen, staring in shock. Their disbelief reflected back at Jessica, like a warped mirror. Ryan was still on the ground, struggling to breathe, his pride shattered. Trey stood stiffly, cradling his arm, jaw clenched tight, as if trying to hold in his shame. Monica and Ava, Jessica's usual followers, were silent. Their smug grins were gone. And Imani? She hadn't moved. She didn't celebrate, didn't mock them, didn't even look pleased. She just stood there, steady, hands at her sides, like none of this had been difficult for her. Jessica's nails dug into her palms. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Her mind raced, searching for a way to fix this, to take back control. She needed to remind everyone she was still Jessica Carter, the one who made the rules, the one they feared. Then Imani spoke again, making sure Jessica understood just how badly she had lost. "You thought this was about power," Imani said, her voice soft but firm. "But the truth is, you were never strong to begin with." Jessica felt the words hit like a slap. They burned through her skin, her pride, her whole being. Then Imani turned away. Just like that. She left Jessica standing there, humiliated in front of the same crowd that once worshipped her. The movement was so simple, so dismissive. Jessica snapped. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just acted, lunging forward to grab Imani's hair in a desperate attempt to take back control. It was a mistake. Before Jessica could react, her wrist was caught midair, trapped in an iron grip. Imani didn't even turn her head. She just held Jessica's arm there effortlessly, her body completely still. Jessica froze, her breath catching. Then Imani finally turned to look at her. Jessica felt the full weight of that steady, unshakable gaze. Imani's grip tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt, but enough to show Jessica her own weakness. She leaned in close so only Jessica could hear. "You don't have power over me, and you never will." Then she let go. Jessica stumbled back, her heart pounding violently. Her body had betrayed her in front of everyone. Imani didn't wait for her response. She just walked away. This time the silence wasn't just shock. It was final. Jessica knew it, and worse, everyone else did too. Ryan and Trey weren't smirking. Monica and Ava weren't whispering in her ear. The crowd that once hung on her every word now looked at her differently. Not with fear, but with pity. Jessica couldn't breathe. She hadn't just lost a fight. She'd lost everything. The next morning, Brooklyn High felt different. Jessica walked through the halls with her shoulders squared and chin lifted, her designer bag in place like nothing had changed. But she felt it. The shift, the weight, the whispers following her. For years, she controlled the school, decided who mattered and who didn't. Now she was the one being watched. Not with admiration or fear, but with doubt, with curiosity. She heard Imani's name murmured behind her. Not hers. People weren't talking about Jessica's power anymore. They were talking about how the new girl had destroyed it in less than a week. At her usual cafeteria table, Jessica sat stiffly, barely eating. Monica and Ava were quiet, avoiding eye contact, their loyalty uncertain. Ryan and Trey sat nearby, bruised egos fresh, but silent. No one spoke. For the first time, Jessica wasn't the center of attention. Across the room, Imani sat alone as usual, eating calmly like nothing had happened. But something had. People glanced her way, hesitated near her table. Basketball players nodded respectfully. Girls who ignored her before now seemed interested. But Imani didn't care. She wasn't seeking attention or trying to replace Jessica. She'd done what she came to do and moved on. No gloating, no power grab. Because to Imani, Jessica's throne never mattered. Jessica clenched her fork. Maybe she could still fix this. Maybe she could turn things around. A shadow fell across her table. Jessica looked up. Imani stood there. For a moment, Jessica couldn't breathe. Imani didn't sit, didn't lower her voice. She just looked at Jessica, completely calm and in control. "We're done," she said simply. Jessica's throat tightened. Everyone was watching, waiting. The words felt like a final judgment. Jessica had lost. Everyone knew it. Imani didn't wait for a reply. She turned and walked away. Jessica sat frozen as her world crumbled. Imani left the cafeteria without looking back. For the first time in her life, Jessica Carter had no control at all. Share meaningful stories with us. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to begin your day with profound lessons and genuine compassion.